What's up, guys? We're going to talk LSU with one of my buddies, Bryce Koon. He is part of 24/7 Sports covering the LSU Tigers. And as you guys know, this is for the original Bama Football Tailgate Show, which airs Saturdays across the state of Alabama. So he's going to help us with a preview and talk some Tigers and all of that stuff. But Bryce, how you doing, man?
Doing good, man. I'm excited to be in the building for this one. I mean, this is one of those that every single year, Mick, you kind of get to the first weekend in November. It's the final month of the regular season, and this is the game that kind of kicks us off. And so it's going to be a fun one. A lot of SEC West implications, and really, too, a lot of playoff implications. More for Alabama than LSU, but man, this is going to be a fun one.
Yeah, a lot of smack talking coming out of LSU and Baton Rouge, which we expect. We've known that for a long time. Except Alabama dominated them so much that they were really quiet. They would have a win here or there, but last year's win for them, I thought, was one that I didn't see coming. I just thought Alabama was a much better team, and they were, but LSU won. Brian Kelly, I think, is the first legitimate head coach that they've had. Never took Les Miles serious, and he won a championship. Ed Orgeron, I mean, come on, this guy's buttoned up, man. I mean, this hasn't been their year because of injuries, but I have a lot of respect for the program. All right. Well, yeah, you answer that, and then when we're done, we're gonna start the radio interview.
Yeah, so you mentioned obviously the legitimacy of Brian Kelly. I mean, he brings a lot with him, and I think that win last year did a lot for him too, Mick, in the sense of, they had a rebuild project, no doubt about it, with what Orgeron kind of after that national title in 2019 and then kind of the downfall of this program. But look, it's got a lot of brand value. Obviously, LSU, kids know what the white and gold means, especially inside that state for recruiting wise for Louisiana. So it's a big football game, and we'll see too. Can Brian Kelly do it 2 years in a row? Now you got to do it in Tuscaloosa, which has not been kind, really outside of that 2019 season to LSU.
Yeah, well, we got this guy named Nick Saban. LSU had him. Yeah, he's
pretty good.
Yeah, difference maker. I mean, I keep talking about LSU. Before Saban got there, joke program. 7-8 wins. He got there and started kicking everybody's ass. And honestly, it's like they've done a great job of riding the Saban wave even after he's gone. Hopefully, Alabama can follow that. Because Saban's eventually going to leave. And then that blueprint, which was laid out by him, has been followed with different coaches. They've never really relented the recruiting and the other stuff that he brought to the table. So, all right, well, let's get this thing going. This will be on the show on Saturday. So we're going to Saturday. We're getting your time machine, your DeLorean, and let's go. Welcome back to the original Bama Football Tailgate Show as we get you ready for Alabama and LSU. That kickoff is at 6:45, Bryant-Denny Stadium, and this is the game. It always is the game for the West. At least you would think that with LSU and Alabama matching up in Tuscaloosa. Let me remind you guys, it's that time of year right now where you're thinking about what am I going to do vacation-wise, and it's a great time to visit Sevierville and the Smoky Mountains. We're in the middle of Harvest Festival right now, which means creative fall displays throughout Sevierville. You got the brilliant colors in the trees, and you can do 4 different self-guided fall tours that take you through the back roads and highlight historical points of interest and beautiful views. That's visitsevierville.com/fall. And then you got the holidays. You got Thanksgiving, and then Christmas is awesome up there as well. But this segment is presented by Visit Sevierville.
See yourself in Sevierville, Tennessee. Your Smokies start here.
All right, Bryce Koon from 24/7 Sports covers the LSU Tigers, longtime friend, and we're going to talk about this matchup. Great to have you on the show. This has turned out to be a really big game for both of these teams. No surprise there, right? LSU wins, And even though they've lost twice, they still have the path to get back to Atlanta where they were last year, losing to Georgia. And for Alabama, they want to win this game and stay undefeated in the SEC and get a chance at Georgia, where they've had a lot of success in Atlanta. What's right now the look of this offense and defense for the Tigers?
Yeah, I think it's two opposite ends of the spectrum, honestly, Mick. I mean, you've got an offense that's number one in a lot of the good statistical categories, and I think too, when you see what this offense has done, look, Jaden Daniels is a guy that is receiving some hype to maybe be in New York, and this is going to be an opportunity, I think, in this game where every single season, and Alabama fans are really familiar with this. Guys like Bryce Young, guys like Mac Jones, Jalen Hurts, Tua. I mean, you go down the list of what they've had. Guys that have moments where you could say, hey, that could be a Heisman moment. And I think this game on the road in Tuscaloosa, you're judged on the whole season, but this game right here is going to mean a lot if Daniels goes in and has a really good performance. So, I think offensively, I'm excited to watch, Mick, this talented Alabama secondary against this talented wide receiver group for LSU. I think this is one that a lot of NFL GMs, scouts are going to be cutting up the tape afterwards and saying, hey, you want to improve your draft stock? You better have a good performance either side of the football for either team in this game on Saturday night. So offensively, I feel good about where LSU is. They've got a run game where they really didn't have that last year necessarily. They've got a guy like Logan Diggs transferred in from Notre Dame. Has been a nice story for them. A nice lead back with a complement of several other guys. But when you flip it over to the other side of the football, and it's no surprise to anyone when you look at the numbers. Like LSU hasn't been able to really stop anybody. I caution the LSU fan base because yes, were there positive strides made against Auburn and Army, but as your audience will know, Auburn's offense is really not anything to talk to the town about, and Army's not really going to be killing anybody offensively either. Was it good momentum? But obviously, it's a different challenge. And this back half of the schedule that leads off with Alabama, going to go into Florida, Georgia State, and then Texas A&M to round things out. Your defense is going to have to step up, Mick. They're going to have 4 guys with less than 8 quarters combined of college football experience playing in the back end of the defense. When you get to guys like Jermaine Burton, and if Milroe wants to have success down the field, I think that's where Alabama's offense is going to have to look to this young, inexperienced secondary.
Yeah, I mean, I figure it's the same way too, and then a lot of injuries for LSU in the secondary as well. You do have Harold Perkins, though, in the middle for the Tigers, and I mean, I don't know that there's a better player in college football defensively than Perkins at his position, and if there are, I mean, they're not much better. I mean, this guy's been amazing. Brian Kelly, though, came in last year, got the Tigers surprisingly to the SEC championship game, went for 2 against Alabama. That worked out great. And then this year, there were a lot of expectations that they would win the national championship. Lost to Florida State, lost to Ole Miss. What's the LSU fan base feeling about Brian Kelly? Are they a little bit disappointed, or do they feel like, hey, we're still on track here with this guy?
I think it's a little bit split, honestly. I mean, look, the offseason hype that we saw from this team, you had all the returners offensively, offensive lines, a veteran group that's coming back, really good talent up front, too. Offensively, you felt like, man, this is a championship caliber offense. And I think, too, even, 8-9 weeks into the season, we can say, heading into week 10 here, it is a championship caliber offense. The numbers they have put up, the efficiency rates that they have, yeah, you feel good about it. But, obviously the defense was a letdown. That first game against Florida State, I think there was a sense of, pounding the chest a little bit, walking into that game saying, hey, we're the big bad boys from the SEC that, whether you're an LSU fan, Alabama fan, we all like to pound our chest when we go into, those cross-conference matchups. But I think overall, when you kind of got stunned in that game, and that Florida State team, I think, is a really solid and well-coached team. The Ole Miss game was one for fans that really hurt because I'm sure, Mick, a lot of your fans and your listeners believe this. One thing I've come to understand, being in the SEC West for a short period of time, but an SEC fan nonetheless, is that when you're in the West, you don't lose to Ole Miss. When you're Alabama, when you're maybe even Auburn, when you're LSU, Ole Miss is like the redheaded stepchild. It's the little brother. You don't want to lose to Ole Miss. That loss on the road really hurts. So, after that game, the fan base was frustrated, upset. But I think that they also understand that going back to what we said kind of the opening of the show was This was a rebuild project. You had, I believe, 34 scholarship players when they played the Texas Bowl when Ed Orgeron was fired, 2 seasons ago. This was a project where they've got to build depth. They've got their starters, I think, are, when you look especially offensively, talented as any in the country. It's the depth that they're still trying to build. So while I've cautioned the fan base, say, hey, you're still on the right track, to be, first week in November, Mick, and still have a chance to get to Atlanta for a second straight year in as many years as Kelly's been there, I think when the 30,000-foot view comes into focus, that's something that LSU fans kind of have to be happy about.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, in that you're going to lose some games sometimes that you should win. The surprising thing to me about the Ole Miss game, though, is having watched Alabama absolutely shut down Jackson Dart in that game. He didn't throw any touchdowns. He ran one in the first half and basically was baffled in the second half. And then to watch the way that Ole Miss was able to just throw the ball all over the place on LSU, I'm wondering what adjustments do you think they're going to make when they take on Alabama on both sides of the ball? I mean, not saying Jalen Milroe is Jackson Dart, but his deep ball is about as good as anyone. The mid-range stuff, that's kind of been, and he can run. We'll start there. And then, how do you think Jaden Daniels matches up against that Bama defense?
Yeah, kind of starting with Milroe, you go back to that Ole Miss game. They struggled with Dart in the run game and in the passing game. And then obviously, what really elevated Ole Miss was Quinshon Judkins, really talented back that didn't show a lot in the game against Alabama. But man, he broke out against LSU and kind of had the game and has started to have the season that a lot of the national pundits and experts thought he would. So I think, specifically with Milroe, one thing that I've been able to kind of go back and watch some of the games and talk with some folks that cover Bama, and you could probably speak to this too, is that you mentioned the mid-range game. If I'm this young secondary, I'm not saying we're playing prevent defense here by any means, but you can't let these guys get past you. I mean, it's going to have to be let these guys play in front of you, and you're going to have to tackle well. Mick, you go back to the Ole Miss game. LSU had, I believe it was 30 or 31 missed tackles in that game. If you do that on the field in Bryant-Denny on Saturday night, it's going to be a blowout. It's going to be a bloodbath, or it's going to be, just this track meet for a full 60 minutes. So I think that's going to be a key defensively. And then, with Milroe, one thing that was, talking with some folks about is they said, look, the kid's young still when it comes to learning the quarterback position, the nuances of it. So sometimes he's going to, maybe push himself up in the pocket or different spots where maybe he's getting there too early. Maybe he's falling off a read a little bit too early. And I think that's just him maturing. I think this kid has the tools to be a really good quarterback, and I think he's starting to trend that way. But, can this front seven, a guy like Harold Perkins that you mentioned earlier, can he frustrate Milroe enough to maybe make some bad decisions? I think that's something that LSU is going to have to see. Can they do that? So, defensively there, and when we flip it over, Jaden Daniels in this Alabama defense, I think it was Nick Saban said on Monday in his press conference, I believe, was, last year Daniels gave them fits with his legs, with his ability to really just extend the play. And one of the biggest things that I've seen the growth from Daniels in year 1 to year 2 in Baton Rouge has been the process, going through his processes, going through his reads, and being able to, because last year it was kind of one of those things, Mick, where this kid would stare down Malik Neighbors. If it wasn't there, he's taken off. And so now he started to get guys like Brian Thomas Jr. involved. So once again, like I said, this secondary for Alabama, you get to some of those guys like Kool-Aid, Terry and Arnold, who I've been really, impressed with in his growth, in his third year in the program. You got guys on the back end that are, really, really solid. So I think it's going to be one of those games where can Daniels make enough of the right decisions to really put an Alabama defense on its heels. A lot of fans have said no one's holding us under 40, and this year. It's going to be a tall task, but I think that, when you look at what LSU's offense has, it's strength on strength. And this is going to be LSU's offense against Alabama's defense. It's going to be a matchup that I think is going to be worthy of the price of admission to watch. And if Daniels makes enough of the right decisions, it feels like a game where you say, okay, if your defense can just make enough stops, you might have a chance to win the football game.
All right, great stuff. Bryce Koon, he's with LSU, the 24/7 sports version. So check him out there, and thank you for coming on the show. Let me remind you guys that the Bama Football Tailgate Show is presented by Tuscaloosa Hyundai, the Elantra, the Sinatra, or an SUV like the Kona or the Tucson or the Santa Fe. Tailgating doesn't get any better. Plus, no side stickers. That means that you don't have to waste your time there. And a lot of these vehicles are made right here in the state of Alabama. Tom Abraham from Huntsville coming up next. More of the original Bama Football Tailgate Show previewing LSU and Alabama. 6:45 at Bryant Denny after this.